Hello and welcome once again to yet another video on our channel. Today we're gonna talk about a very, let's say, light-hearted topic. I'm not gonna be too specific and too technical or go too much into the market. I'm gonna have a fun video, a little game. So basically what I'm gonna talk about is I'm gonna compare different models that exist for quite some time from different brands, different models, and I'm gonna talk about the vintage versions and the recent versions, the versions that you can get right now. And I'm going to rank and tell you my opinion, which ones I prefer. Vintage is always better or modern is always better, because a lot of people, they cannot really decide if they're more like vintage guys or if they prefer the modern ones. I'm gonna give you my opinion and also explain why I think that this or that is better than the other ones. So I will start with a very popular brand. I'm not gonna start with Rolex. I'm gonna start with Omega. And with Omega we have two flagship models. It's the Seamaster and the Speedmaster. First of all, I'd like to start with the Seamaster, and I'm gonna tell you right away that even though I like both, I would always go for the modern one. That has various reasons. First of all, from a technical standpoint, we have the coaxial movements, which are known for their precision. They are very reliable, and also from a technological standpoint, a lot more interesting than the old movements that were really basic. So this is one point. And also, if you try to look a little bit more into detail, you see that the DNA of the old Seamasters, especially if you compare, for example, the bracelet, you have a lot of similarities. So you don't lose the Seamaster vibe or the Seamaster feeling when you go for the modern one. You always have the Seamaster DNA. Then one thing that I really like about it is that they have this very beautiful ceramic bezels with the wavy bezel outlay, and the inlay is of course ceramic, the other one is steel, yeah. And also you have those beautiful dials, that the ceramic dials as well, with a wavy design. And even though it looks a lot like the vintage one, you have a lot more detail, you have more depth in the dials. So I would always go for the modern one. But this is not a very clear decision, because if you compare the, for example, the size, I believe that the vintage one is more wearable than the modern one. For example, the modern one is very well versed. You can wear it with almost every wrist size. I believe that the vintage one is even better in that point. So after all, as in all comparisons, I think that pretty much it's just a matter of taste. So let's go on. I'm gonna talk about the most popular Omega model. It's gonna be the Moonwatch. And for the Moonwatch, I will once again go for the modern one. And this has a very specific reason, and it is just the bracelet. I love the new bracelet. I love that it is a lot more elegant. It's not as chunky as the old one. It's not as thick, so it makes the watch a lot more wearable. It makes it a lot more comfortable on the wrist, especially if you don't have massive wrists. So for me, I would always go for that one. And if you want to know specifically which one, I would always go for the Sandwich Sapphire version, basically the one that has a sapphire glass case back. So you can also have a look into the beautiful movement. And I think that's just, it's just a very nice everyday watch. For me, the Moonwatch is a very nice watch to wear it every day, because even though it's more of a sporty watch, I have never seen anyone combine it wrong. So I think you could also rock it with a suit. You could also rock it with swimwear or whatever, but don't go into water with it. That's not the right watch. You're gonna have to switch back to the Seamaster if you want to jump into the pool or into the sea. Yeah, that's basically it. If we're talking about dials, if we're talking about the cases, I don't see much of a difference. And even if there is a difference, and there are quite a few differences, I wouldn't judge based on that. I wouldn't make a clear decision based on the case. It's just, for me, it's just the bracelet. Especially if you get the newer ones, if you get the 2023, 24, 25 versions, they already have the updated clasp, they have a micro adjustment, so that's quite a useful extra. I'm gonna continue with the next brand, and this has to be Rolex. And I picked out two very popular models. I'm gonna start with the GMT Master 2, and I'm gonna compare. As there are always changes in the bezel configuration that you can get, I will talk about the Pepsi only, because you know, if I'm talking about the Batman or about the Sprite, you don't have something comparable in the past. You can not compare them, because I'm gonna talk about the colors as well. And for that one, this might be one of the only Rolexes where I prefer the modern one over the old one. And I think that's gonna bring me in a lot of trouble because a lot of people are big fans of the old school Rolex, GMT Master, Pepsi. But for me, the new one is a very beautiful watch. You have a very beautiful coloring in the bezel. You have this very dark red and blue, which makes it a lot more easier to wear compared to the very bright and vibrant colors of the vintage versions. And also some people will now say, yeah, but you can go for a faded bezel as well. And there I gotta say, yes, you could be right, but I'm talking about the condition and the color when you get it fresh from the AD. So I'm not taking into consideration that you have sometimes very beautiful colorings after it gets faded. So basically I'm talking about how it looked when you got it new. And if I compare them one-on-one, then the modern one, I think, is a little bit more pretty, but that's just preference. That has nothing to do with objectivity. It's just completely subjective. So let's continue with another one. And now it's also gonna be Rolex, and we're gonna talk about the date, specifically the 36, because in the vintage versions you don't have anything, the 41 millimeter spectrum. So I'm gonna talk about the 36 millimeter, and there it's a very simple answer that you get from me. I think the vintage looks a lot better, especially if we're talking about my absolute all-time favorite reference, the 18238, which is, in my opinion, the best dated you can get. It's massive enough so that it doesn't feel cheap or it doesn't feel like a bad quality watch. It has still the beautiful features that you find in vintage Rolex, like for example the finishing on the lux, or for example the beautiful dial combinations that you can get. So in my opinion, the vintage date is a lot more beautiful than the fully polished, flashy, bling bling dates that you get now from the AD. Even though there are, of course, some beautiful configurations, you can get some beautiful dials as well. But for me, the vintage wins this one easily. So I will go for the next one, where the answer is almost as easy as that one. And now I'm going to talk about the Cartier Santos. And the question is, do you prefer the modern one or the vintage? I will always go for the vintage one. You can also see it in the pricing that, for example, the vintage models are a lot more expensive than the current, like the recent models. The modern ones are still pretty. I think they made a great job in keeping the DNA and adding some new features that make wearing them a lot more easy. For example, the interchangeable rubber straps, you get leather straps, you can get the steel bracelet off very easily. You can adjust it as well. This is a beautiful feature that they integrated in the bracelet. So basically you can, without any tools, without any know-how, you can just shorten or lengthen the bracelet yourself. And this is, from a technological standpoint, very, very nice. But if you just compare the aesthetic of the modern one with the vintage one, you will understand why I prefer the vintage one. And a lot of people are afraid, because the vintage one is 28 millimeters. They are afraid that the vintage one might be too small for their wrists. And I can just tell you, it's, for most people, it's absolutely enough. You can see it in some of our wrist shots. I have a circumference on my wrist of 18.5, and for me it's absolutely brilliant. I would even say that it suits most people better than if you take, for example, the modern one, the large version. This is super hard to wear. You can only wear it if you have a really big wrist. So for me, easy win for the vintage one, especially if you go further and get a special dial, for example, the burgundy red one or the gray ghost dial. Amazing pieces. For real. And the next one I want to talk about is the Tudor Sub. And there is no current Tudor Sub, so I'm gonna compare it with what Tudor has in their lineup right now for divers. And I'm just gonna take the Black Bay 58 on that point, because it's the most popular Tudor. This is kind of a difficult decision to make, because I like the Tudor Sub. It has a very distinguished design. It's like very, very special, especially if you take the blue one. But on the other hand, it has a lot of similarities with the vintage Rolex Submariners. For me, it's a little too close design-wise. So I would, if I wanted a Tudor Sub, I would probably just get a Rolex Submariner, because the price is almost the same. For the Rolex, it's easier to get parts. The watch that has more prestige and more, let's say, more people that recognize it. On the other hand, we have the Black Bay 58, which is one of the most popular Tudors, and there's a big reason behind it, because it is a very, very nice everyday daily beater. You can wear it everywhere. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's not too flashy, with the matte finished bracelet and everything. It's a beautiful watch, but it's not too flashy, and this is what Tudor should be, in my opinion. Tudor shouldn't be too flashy. They shouldn't do gold models, in my opinion. They shouldn't do any any big shiny things. They should stay with the tool watches, with the everyday watches. And this is what the Black Bay 58 does perfectly, in my opinion. So on that point, it might be a little close because I really like the Submariner with the blue bezel, blue dial. It's a beautiful watch, but if you compare them and if you compare how you can use them and what the alternatives are, you cannot get a better daily beater for that price, new from the AD. Compared to this, it's like you cannot get it. So the next model I'm gonna talk about, we're gonna change brands now. I'm gonna talk about the Breitling, and as most people would expect, I will not talk about the Navi timer or the Navy timer. I will talk about the chronomat, because if you compare the old Navy timer with the new one, to see design changes, I think you have to go like to the real vintage stuff, to the pre-Navy timer, to the old ones. And I don't want to go that far because then you have to talk about other designs that were popular back in the days. So I'm gonna talk about the chronomat, and there I have also, it's not a clear thing for me, because if you compare the chronomat with 39 millimeters, the classic one, the vintage one, then you have a very affordable watch, because you can get them from 4,700 euros up to 2,500 euros with a steel bracelet already, sometimes even with papers, and it's very affordable. You can get it easily. It's a good watch to begin your collection with, if you consider or take into consideration that if you need to make a service, you're gonna pay a lot more for a chronograph compared to a non-chronograph watch. So it's very affordable, and the new one is very expensive compared to it. If you go to the AD, they will take 8,500, 9,000 euros, but you can get it a lot cheaper, let's say for around 6,000 euros in almost new condition from any gray market dealer, but that's still a big split. But if I compare them just from the design, I'm not gonna talk about the price, I'm not gonna talk that you can get 3 chronomats, vintage chronomats for the price of one modern one. I'm just gonna talk about the design. Then I like the new one a little better, because I think they have some of the most beautiful dial variations that you can get. For example, the pistachio green. They also have this beautiful ice blue dial. So for me, those dials are very special, and I think if we go in the future for, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years, those dials will be very sought after. You will not find them that easily, as you cannot find them right now that easily. I think they will be considered very special. So for me, it's a close case, but it's gonna be the modern one. And now I'm gonna talk about the IWC Pilot chronograph. So I'm gonna compare it with the current chronographs. I'm not gonna go into details, because I think all the chronographs that IWC produces right now are, let's say, modern versions of their old Pilot chronograph. So I will probably decide for the modern one, because you can get a lot more variations, you can get beautiful designs, you can get it in different materials. IWC makes them in ceramic, they make them in Titan, they make them in bronze, for example the Spitfire. So you can get a lot of different designs and design languages here, and the old chronograph is a beautiful watch, and you cannot deny that it has was very impactful for the IWC history. But in my opinion, the modern ones beat them, of course, fair and square. The next brand I want to talk about is Panerai. And with Panerai, I cannot make a clear decision. I have a slight leaning on the modern ones, but the reason for that is that I just like the modern variations and dial variations that they have, and also straps and so on. Because if you compare the old ones and the new ones, you will see that there are not too many differences. The design is very similar. They stayed very close to the original design, and that is a good thing, because Paneristi, the Panerai collectors, are very passionate when it comes to their iconic designs, because I think everybody knows how a Panerai Luminor Marina, for example, looks like, and it's very iconic. As soon as you see it, it's clear, okay, that's a Panerai. So if they would change the design too much, it wouldn't be the same anymore. So I can also understand why you would be passionate about it. For me, some of the old models look exactly like the new ones, but some of the new ones have incredible dial variations, as I said before. For example, the PAM 01314, for example, with a white dial and the gray highlights is a very beautiful watch. I would even say maybe one of my favorites, and this is something you don't have with the old ones, such a clean dial and so on. So I would lean towards the modern ones, but in my opinion also the old ones have their own vintage charm. So I wouldn't even say that the new ones look better or are better. I would say that they are it's just a matter of preference, and I know a lot of people that prefer the old ones over the new ones, so it's really just a matter of preference. And now I'm gonna talk about the last brand for today, and that has to be Patek Philippe Nautilus. And the thing with the Nautilus is that the modern ones, the 5711, for example, if you take their flagship, is so expensive, and the vintage variations, the vintage alternatives are so much better when it comes to the price, what you get for your money. So for example, the reference 3800, the 3800, is one of the most beautiful. It's very thin, it has a beautiful size with 38 millimeters. It has a very beautiful, if you take for example the blue dial, it looks amazing. I really love the watch. We had it in full gold a few months ago, so I had the great honor to wear it on my wrist for a little, and I can tell you it's a watch you fall in love immediately. And we have quite some people in the company with us with some very different wrist sizes. So we have everything from 16.5 centimeters circumference up to 18.5, 19 centimeters. And I can tell you that the 3800 looks amazing on all of them. Even the client that bought it has, I would say, around 19.5, maybe possibly even 20, but I would say more or less 19.5. And the watch also looked amazing on him. So it's not that you can wear the smaller version only for small wrists. You can wear it with almost every wrist size, and it is way cheaper price wise compared to the 5711. So for me, if I would just consider the design, I wouldn't even be able to make a decision. But if I'm talking about the price and what you get for your money, then the vintage one is a little bit above, so I would go for that one, I think. That's it for today's video. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with anything or if you agree with anything. Also, if you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up, and also if you didn't follow our channel yet, please do that now so you don't miss any videos in the future, because we plan to make a video every week, so you have a lot more content. We always hope to see you also on our other channels, for example the German channel. If you see this channel before the German, you can also follow there, or our Instagram, or you can download our app. So we are very happy to have all the community collected and connected here. So if you like what we do, please support us by following us, giving us some feedback, and I would say see you next time, see you next Thursday. Peace out.